Welcome, friends. We're so happy you've chosen today to study the Holy Scriptures with us and to study the works of a man that lived 2,500 years ago, but whose interpretation of prophecies were those things that affect us even today. That man whose work we are going to study today is Daniel. And Daniel was a youth when he was taken from his country, native country of Judea, and his city of Jerusalem to Babylon, among the first exiles that was carried by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. And in that country, we find that he found himself in a situation in which he was being instructed, a 3-year training program to equip him to king before the king, that is, to do the king's business. While he was still young, in this program, the king dreamed a dream, and he was very disturbed about the dream. He couldn't think about anything else. He couldn't sleep. So he called his wise men, his counselors, his magicians together, told them, I've dreamed a dream. It's something that troubles me greatly. I want to know what that dream meant. And if you can interpret to me what this dream meant, I will honor you with great honors, give great gifts to you. But if you can't, then I will put you to death. We find that the individuals that were the counselors waited for the king to tell him what the dream was. And they said, "O king, tell us what the dream is. We'll tell you what the interpretation is." You remember the course and the results of that. The king says, "I've forgotten it, but if you can tell me what the dream means, you can tell me what the dream was." But as we look, none of those could. And the king was very angry, and he gave an edict that every one of the wise men and the counselors that were ones that stood in his service were ones that were going to be put to death. That would include Daniel and his 3 companions, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So Daniel approached the man who was the captain of the king's servants, and he asked him what the urgency was. And Arioch told him. And so he urged that the king would allow him time. He said, "Give me time, and I will tell you what that dream was. I will tell you what that dream meant." And so that time was granted to Daniel. Well, naturally, this put great and tremendous pressure upon Daniel. His life was at stake. So he and his 3 friends did what people in urgent need and who would believe in God do. He went to God in prayer, and he prayed, and his friends likewise prayed with him. And in the night, God showed to Daniel what that dream meant. Now, how long it was that they prayed, the record does not tell us. But when the dream was given to him and what it meant, Daniel sent word to the captain of the king and said, set an appointment. Tell the king, we're ready. We'll tell him what the dream was. We'll tell him what the king means. So he was brought in before the king. And the king said, Daniel, are you able to interpret this dream, to tell me what the dream is? And Daniel said, O king, live forever. What you have asked is impossible. There isn't a living man today that can tell you what this dream meant without being told what the dream was. But, O king, there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and he knows all these things, and he has declared unto us what your dream was and what your dream meant. And then Daniel said, I will tell you first what you dreamed. And so he said, you, O king, saw a great image. Its head was of gold, its breast, its arms were of silver, its belly, its thighs were of brass, its legs were of iron, its feet were of iron and clay. And you beheld that image. And then you saw a mountain, and without hands, a stone was cut out of that mountain, and it fell on that image, and it fell on that image's feet, and it broke that image and crushed it to dust. And then It was that began to grow and grow and grow and became a great mountain that filled all the earth. Now, this, O king, is what you dreamed. Well, the king did not object. If he had forgotten it, it brought it back to his mind. If he had not forgotten it, he knew that what Daniel was telling him was just exactly what he had dreamed. And so he waited in anticipation for Daniel to fulfill the second thing that he had promised unto him. He was going to tell him what the dream meant. And so he said, this image, O king, represents 4 kingdoms of men, and they're going to arise and they're going to fall as man rises and man falls. And he said, you, O king, are the head of gold. That is, Nebuchadnezzar, as the king of Babylon, stood for the kingdom itself. And it would be that would rise, and like gold is considered the most precious of metals, so Nebuchadnezzar was one that was precious as well. His kingdom was that was unequaled as far as that time was concerned. And we find that Daniel said, you're the head of gold. But then, O king, you saw that image was comprised of breast and arms that were silver. And after you, O king, there's going to be another kingdom that's going to arise. And then a third kingdom is going to arise. And then finally, O king, there is going to be a fourth kingdom that will arise. All of these in their place. The kingdom that will be, the third kingdom will be likened unto bronze, and in the image it was that was the belly and the thighs of brass or bronze. And the fourth kingdom, whose legs were of iron, feet were of iron and clay, well, Nebuchadnezzar was told, this is the fourth kingdom, and it's going to be strong, and in many ways, because iron and clay do not mix, it's going to be weak. And so we find that Daniel talked about that this image represented 4 empires that would come to pass. And then that wasn't the only thing that Nebuchadnezzar had dreamed. He had dreamed that that image was destroyed, and it was destroyed by a stone that was cut out without hands out of a mountain, and this stone smote the image on its feet, and it crushed that image, and the wind blew it away. But that king stone began to grow and grow and grow and became a great mountain that filled all the earth. Now, Daniel had interpreted what the image meant. What did the stone cut out by the hands mean? What did it mean when it grew and grew and grew and became a mountain and filled all the earth? Well, as the image with the 4 different parts represented 4 different kingdoms of man who came and reached their pinnacle and then fell into decline and later was succeeded by someone else. So the stone cut out without hands, out of a mountain that grew, that destroyed that image, likewise represented a kingdom. But the kingdom that it represented was not a human kingdom. It was not of human origin. It was of divine origin. And like the kingdoms of men were those that were bounded by time and passed away, so it would not be with that kingdom that was the 5th kingdom. In Daniel 2 and 44, we find that Daniel interprets what this stone that grew and grew and became a mountain meant. Daniel said, O king, in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the sovereignty thereof be left to other peoples. But it shall break in pieces and shall consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Thus, as we look at this dream of Nebuchadnezzar, it was that was given to Nebuchadnezzar. He did not object. That was the dream he dreamed, and the interpretation was given to him. How could he question the interpretation when Daniel had done the impossible? He had done what man could not do. We thank you for listening today. And a week from today, we're going to continue this, except that as we look at this dream, which we've now seen, we're going to show the fulfillment of that dream. It is important because you and I today are ones that are part of the fulfillment of this dream that Nebuchadnezzar dreamed so many, many years ago. Now remember, on Friday, we invite you to study along with us as we continue our journeys in Acts. We'd be so glad to have you if you're not watching, and that you will continue your studies with us as we look at this ancient prophet so very long ago. And now, wish you a very gracious, a very blessed day. And remember this is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice. We'll be glad in it.